So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you back because looking back into Bloodsport, it was quite interesting. Firstly, looking at Newt Arnold, I didn't realize that he's worked with some really tough and famous characters over the years. Mostly, yeah, and even James Cameron on The Abyss, which I was like, whoa. So he's worked with some tough cookies. Not so much. This was his first directing film, so I always wondered how much did he lean on you? Because at that point, you were quite experienced as a DP, and
Well, what I brought to the mix was the Kubrickian lighting that I had learned in post production on Death Game. I had a very amazing circumstance. I was the cinematographer on Death Game, and then I went to a screening center and I were told, showed a screening. It was awful. I kept saying, "Where's that long shot? Where's that better take? Where's this? Where's that?" Took the director back to the editing room after the screening and was able to grab a couple of shots and fix it. He fired the editor. I became the editor on
oh
Death
wow,
Game. And during the post production, when it came time to uh, build the soundtracks of the actors, you had to put each actor on a different track because the sound mixer then could handle them.
yeah,
And I was doing that, and I ran out of fill leader because between the performance, you had to put in fill leader. Fill leader was old 35 millimeter prints.
got you.
Called our laboratory, and I asked for some more fill leader. I went in on Saturday. There was my box of fill leader. Now I could work when it was quiet. I opened it up. What had the gods of production sent me? A 35 millimeter print of a Clockwork Orange.
Ah, so this was the practical lighting.
Yeah, I sent another box. I sent for another box of fill leader because I kept that for many years. That was a prized possession. I put it up on the moviola, took my work off the moviola, put Mr. Kubik's work on, and studied it frame by frame, scene by scene. And when I came to the scene of little Alex killing the cat lady with the sculpture of the giant phallus, end of the scene, I all of a sudden hit the brake. I said, "What the fuck?" I went back. I said, "Wait a minute. Stanley is shooting this with a very wide angle lens, probably a 16 or a 14, 360 degrees, handheld. I can see all four walls, the floor, and the ceiling in this room. There are no movie lights."
Which
Through
take
my fucking mind.
and that takes me perfectly to Bloodsport because there was a Van Damme was on a TV show and he talked about how they filmed the final fight in like half a day, and I was like, that's impossible until I rewatched the movie, and I was like, are they all 1K lights? The whole set is lit.
Yes, I walked
Yeah.
in and I walked into that set and my gaffer was there and I said, "1K, 1K, 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 1K." I built the lighting into the sets because that's what you have to do with any martial arts. You cannot move lighting between shots. You have to pre-light the sets. I learned this from Mr. Kubrick, of course. And that changed my life. That's what I brought to Bronco Billy, to Clint
Yeah,
Eastwood.
yeah.
Same thing. In the circus tent, same thing.
And Clint Eastwood, he's quite famous for not really wanting to waste time, so he must have loved you.
Well, he not really loved me, he gave me another movie because of it, he always comes in 2 or 3 days ahead of schedule. On Bronco Billy, we came in 2.5 weeks ahead
Wow.
of schedule on my first Warner Brothers movie, my first big star movie.
And that's pretty much down to just having the whole set lit so you could just shoot at free
Every
will.
every bar he walked into, every set he walked into, the circus tent, 3 cameras, no waiting in any direction.
I mean, yeah, I mean that is kind of crazy. And I guess like well, especially with Bloodsport, it would have been impossible. How long did you guys get to shoot the actual movie?
Newt took 8 weeks to shoot it, and we shot the Kumite, everything in that arena. I think in 7 days, 6 7 days.
And looking at the movie, I mean, it's so I can tell he shot a lot of coverage. You can
Yes,
see through the movies, there's like the dolly, crane,
that's right.
handheld,
That's right.
and
Slow
was
mo.
And the slow motion, and how did so you lit it especially for the slow motion, so it's just a quick on the
Yeah,
exposure,
right. Absolutely.
so it was that quick.
Yeah, absolutely. We shot it at a 2.8, and then slow motion was a 2.2.
When I looked at the new 4K transfer, I was quite amazed at how well the film held up, and I wonder what kind of film stocks you guys used back then, because
Millimeter, Eastman Kodak or Fuji. I believe it was Fuji because I was in Asia.
and were you surprised when you saw the new 4K transfer? Because I guess you see it in the cinema and then see it on VHS for many years, then DVD, and then it's like boom, 4K, and they've done a pretty good job of cleaning up the movie, and especially the fight scenes look like they were shot like yesterday. It's almost like a timeless,
Yeah.
timeless movie in a weird way.
Well, it is because it was lit that way. It was lit to be captured with three Panavision cameras wide, three kind of Panavision cameras tight, close-ups on each of the fighters, handheld on the mat, and then highlights of slow motion. I averaged 73 setups a day and had a high of 93
Wow.
that week of shooting the Kumite.
I mean, that must be some kind of record, surely.
That, that record stood until I did True Vengeance with Daniel Bernhardt, and Daniel broke it twice
Wow.
with 4 setups.
I mean, that is, and I tell you, I honestly think, David, one of the reasons the way, well, a big part of Bloodsport's success, obviously Van Damme, but if you look at the way the film is shot and the way it's presented, like the Kumite, it's just so well lit. And I remember when they tried to replicate it years later in The Quest, and they just missed the mark. For me, I was just like, I could see what they were trying to do, but
A
I
lot
think
of
that
viewers don't understand pre-lighting a set. They want to shoot, oh, this is perfect light this way. Now we're going to shut down for an hour while I relight and get perfect light that way. It's
yeah,
dumb. It's dumb. And that's just feather bedding your own position, trying to make your position look great. You've got a light for the film, for the bed director, and for the best scene possible. And that goes back to Mr. Kubrick. Pre-light the sets. He was
yeah.
doing it in Strangelove. He was doing it in 2001. He was doing it in Clockwork Orange. He was doing it all of his fucking life. And that's where you learn the most by studying Mr. Kubrick. I grabbed that. I took it to Bronco Billy. I took it to Bloodsport, etc., etc.
I was curious about Bloodsport. I'm not sure if it was an interview you did where they said that Van Damme was quite difficult on Bloodsport, and considering he was an unknown first-time actor, he was quite volatile on the set. Is that actually true?
Yes, very, very true. And it amazed me for a while because I'd done 2 films with Clint Eastwood, who's the biggest icon of icons as far as actor directors go, and he never raised his voice
Mm-hmm.
whole year on 2 films. I come here and Van Damme is, fuck you, I'm the star, fuck you, this, fuck you, that. What the fuck is with this guy? They figured it out. It was because he was fasting and was training so hard to keep that cut. He was highly strung like a racehorse.
Got
And
you.
if anything bugged him, he just went off. So once I understood that, I just let it roll right over me. It didn't matter at all. And we did the work. He was brilliant, charismatic, efficient, just a wonderful young man to work with. He was volatile because of the fasting and the workout and training to get that cut.
And can we put the rumor to bed? How long did it actually take to film the final fight?
Oh yeah, no, that was probably done. Bolo's fight with him was probably done in a day.
Wow. I mean,
Because that 3 Panavision cameras wide, 3 Panavision cameras tight, handheld on the mat, highlights in slow motion. We had it down to a science. 75 to 93 setups a day.
and I take it those guys had the fighting pretty down, so they were just ready to go.
They were rehearsing outside. The next fight was always rehearsing outside. Then we were shooting. The one inside was rehearsing. Then they come in and we'd shoot that, and then the next one would be shooting, rehearsing, and we had it really down to a science.
And did Newt Arnold kind of lean on you, let you just kind of get on and shoot the movie, or did he have quite an input into the way it was shot?
Newt wanted all the coverage.
He did. He was scared. It was his first movie. He wanted.
Sure. No, just he shot over 240,000 feet of film on that.
Wow.
When I did Kickboxer, I did it in 6 weeks on 120,000 feet of film.
So you've DP'd Bloodsport, right? They sat on Bloodsport for like a year or whatever. It comes out and it's a big hit. How did you manage to get in on Kickboxer as a director? Was it once Bloodsport hit and the money started coming in?
No, I started bugging the producer about it when I was shooting Bloodsport, I believe. I said, why don't you let me direct the next one? You see how I work with the crew here. You see how I handle all the coverage, how I handle the lighting, how I handle the equipment, etc. I kept bugging him about it. Eventually, he called me into his office because they didn't have any money. They didn't have it together. They said, come on in and volunteer your time, and then you'll be ready to do it by the time we do it. And I did that. I went in and I worked without a contract for 6 months, polishing the script, doing the casting, storyboarding the film. And we even cast someone for Van Damme in case he didn't sign on, because Van Damme did not sign on right away.
All right.
Jeff Speakman.
Ah, so
if Van Damme didn't sign on. But in the last, finally, after months and months, 6 months, Van Damme signed on. I got my deal. We went to do the movie.
So this is where it's quite interesting because you're credited with what's his name, Mark DeSalle, the producer, as a co-director.
Yeah, that never happened.
I was going to say, was that just? I can imagine that would be an absolute nightmare.
He took that credit the week before the main titles went on the film.
Oh wow. Okay, well that's pretty shocking, isn't it? And
Yeah.
and also it's down on my version here in the UK anyway. Van Damme directed the fight scenes.
He did. He didn't direct it, but he did all the choreography for it. I directed. I put all the cameras. I had it pre-lit for him and placed all the cameras scene by scene, shot by shot. But I let him choreograph it. I said, "It's your baby. You do it. You know more about this than anybody."
Mm.
So I let him take his prowess and do it. And I placed the cameras and we captured it all and did it.
It's one, I would say, Kickboxer, you probably got one of his best performances out of Van Damme. Maybe you could argue out of his career. It was quite natural.
Yes.
His career's kind of funny because his acting ability kind of changed with who was directing him. And I always wondered, is he an actor that likes to re-loop all his lines in post-production to change his own performance?
No.
No.
I mean, as I was concerned, he did most of it in production. He did it on location on the spot.
All right.
It's 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 all natural sound and natural performance. Bloodsport and Kickboxer.
Oh, really?
Maybe
That's...
maybe they did something after I left. I don't know, but as far as I'm concerned, he was the guy who would get it on the day.
And what was his attitude different on the shoot for Kickboxer? I mean, Bloodsport has come out now, and I guess his star is starting to rise. Was he a bit more relaxed because he's still in pretty good shape in Kickboxer, or was he still as crazy?
He was still volatile. He was still keeping that cut. He was still working out. He was still fasting. So I did, that never bothered me once I understood it. That was just a racehorse, and he needed to be handled that way.
Mm-hmm. So was it? Were you in on taking Paul Herzog back to score Kickboxer, or was that a decision?
Well, I did my director's cut, and then I was asked to not do anything else. So I just left and let the producer finish it.
So you weren't in on the sound mix, nothing. And is that like a regret? Was that something you were kind of politely asked not to be a part of?
I saw it. I liked it. I thought they did a very professional job. I have no problem with the sound mix. I have films where I wasn't able to do it, where I can't watch the film anymore
Yeah.
because of that.
So is that quite a normal thing back, like in the 80s, 90s, that the director might not be involved in the editorial part of the movie?
That was Mark Gistel's choice.
Okay.
I was signed to do a director's cut, which I did, and then he finished the film.
And was your director's cut quite close to the cut that came out in the cinema?
Exactly.
And was it a success? Because I know in home video, I mean, it was a success, but when it first came out, did it hit straight away, or was it like one of those things where it was kind of a slow Van Damme career building movies?
Listen, I don't recall perfectly, but I believe it was everyone was because of Bloodsport being a huge hit was waiting for Kickboxer, and that soared right to the top right away too.
But there's a weird thing over here in the UK. There's a version, and I'm just going to look up the guy's name, Dennis Alexio.
Oh yes,
There's a version with his real voice, and then there's a version where he's been completely dubbed, which is like really bizarre, depending on which version you get.
producer's choice.
To
Not
dub him. So how did one version manage to get out? And why did he choose to dub him?
I have no idea how that version ever got out.
It's crazy because the version he talks in his normal voice is so much better,
Yeah,
which is such a bizarre thing.
that's how Mark Gistel can fuck things up.
Yeah, I can see by the fact he gives himself a director's credit. Yeah, classic. Is he a classic LA producer? Do you think now that Bloodsport has been remastered, they're going to eventually do Kickboxer? Because it's one of those weird things. It seems sometimes to be overlooked, Kickboxer, but there's such a huge fan base. Even when they re-released the soundtrack, there's a huge influx on people kind of looking back at the movie. But they never seem to give it a good release or invest any money to at least try and clean it up.
Well, that all depends on who owns the rights, I think.
So now, I mean, I saw on your Facebook, you're still making movies. You're still involved with people making movies.
I'm
So,
trying to put a tribute to the original Kickboxer
oh, really?
for next year, and I'm also preparing a film for Venice for this year, for Venice, Italy.
So what's the tribute to Kickboxer? Is that like going to be like a proper movie where you're just going to try and recreate the magic?
Yes, I have all the original cast involved. It's as though the sequels never happened.
Oh, thank God. Yeah.
That was my feeling. It is as though these sequels never happened.
And
It's 20, whatever it is, 20, 30 years later, we just pick up these characters' lives. Kurt Sloan and Tong Po and all, et cetera, et cetera.
so you're talking like Van Damme and the guy who played Tong Po coming back?
Yes, everyone is signed on with Van Damme. He just wants guarantee of a certain amount of money, which I'm raising for him right now.
And yeah, I bet that's not cheap.
No, not cheap.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Because I know I saw a Kickstarter where some people they were doing I can't remember the name, the last Kumite.
That's being done right now.
Yeah, and it showed there's still quite a big interest in these movies, and there hasn't really been a martial art film like Kick. Yeah, I mean you could argue there has, but Kickboxer and Bloodsport certainly stand the test of time, and people keep returning for a reason because they're quite, I don't know what the word is. I guess they're like film history. They started the trend of all these terrible martial arts movies that came after, and so it's nice to know that it's finally going to come back. And when you say it's like a direct follow up, is it going to be martial arts based or more?
It's as though the sequels never happened. It's a follow up to the characters in the original Kickboxer 30 years later.
So they come back together.
Yes.
And who was the guy who trained them in the original? I forget his name. Dennis.
Dennis, Dennis Chan.
And is he still kicking about?
Yes.
And is he coming back?
I'll send you. I'll I'll show you the promo reel I've got here. One second. Can I screen it for you?
Yeah, it'd be amazing. I won't put this on YouTube either, obviously, so feel free. So are you allowed to talk about your movie the new Kickboxer film you're planning, or is this something that you've just kind of keeping on the down low until it all comes together?
Yes.
So let me just see, like I was going through your career. So you've directed 27 movies.
Yes, sir.
And one of the ones that like I was like, what? You worked with Bruce Campbell and you shot The Man with a Screaming Brain and then the sci-fi movie, which I mean, how did that come out? Because I mean, Bruce Campbell directed The Man with a Screaming Brain, is that right?
Bruce is my hero. He's a wonderful, wonderful man. And I was hired to go to Bulgaria and do about three films back to back to back, and Bruce's were two of them. Bruce did Alien Apocalypse,
That's it, yeah.
and then he did Man of the Screaming Brain, and then we did a horrible movie, some kind of puppet master versus the demon puppet piece of shit.
Oh my God, the Puppet Master movies. Yeah, I remember them.
Which
So
one was thrilling?
and how is Bruce Campbell as a director? Because obviously he's probably quite influenced by Sam Raimi, I would imagine.
He was extremely efficient, one of the most efficient directors I've ever worked with. He and the assistant director took the time to go through the script, and every scene they would figure how much time it would take.
Oh wow.
He figured it down to the minute, scene by scene, schedule for schedule, day for day, what we would need to do, and that we stuck to that 12 hours a day every day and got the work done. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant young man.